Welcome everybody to the Lakota Language Consortium Facebook page. Today I get to interview one of the wonderful presenters from the Tusweca Language Summit, and can I have you introduce yourself?
Haípažaža Pjourdupi, Tipiziwin Tolman, Machapi, na Waslaha, Emataha. My name is Tipiziwin Tolman, and I'm from Standing Rock. I'm Húŋkpapญ่, Lakota, and Wičhíyena, Dakota.
All right, it is good to have you on. And the reason we are here today is to talk about the Tusweca Language Summit. And it was a very impactful summit. For one, it was one of the first times we got to, see language come together, coming together for a specific event. And it was really nice. It was really positive, and it was really good to see everyone. And you did a couple presentations. Can you let us know what your presentation topics were and why you chose those topics?
So I did two presentations. One was called Anything is Better Than Nothing, and sharing stories of language victories or victories for the Lakota language. And then I did a second presentation, and that's surrounding my research as a master's student at University of Victoria, involving winter count, and specifically the winter counts of my great-grandparents, and how I'm in the process of really, I guess my goal is to create a platform to make it accessible to all communities so that they can use it and know it and grow to love it, and they can get all sorts of positive experiences from learning the stories that are on my great-grandparents' winter count.
And so your first presentation, using or learning language by any means, can you talk a little bit about, the main focus of your presentation? I know one of the quotes or one of the stories you mentioned was about this specific welcoming ceremony and it being continued on using any means, and that it was given the opportunity to move forward. And can you just share your thoughts on that?
Oh, was that about the Maori, sharing about the Maori welcoming?
Yeah.
So I basically, the overall presentation was sharing some specific learning experiences that I've had that have just been life-changing for me and changed the way I thought, changed the way I conduct myself. I mean, just everything, the way I look at the world, and my own community, my own children, and then giving an opportunity for participants to kind of do a small, more critical, deep dive, giving a moment for them to really reflect. Because I think that everyone has similar experiences, but really giving an opportunity to, I guess, open up dialogue and for ourselves, because that was the most important piece for me, was just really all these learning experiences and being able to talk about them with others who are going through a similar process and journey. And so I was able to travel to New Zealand, Aotearoa, to visit language nests, and it was just such a life-changing experience. And some of the things that were shared with me, was a story about a traditional story, or a traditional welcoming that their people do, and it's very specific. It has to be an elderfoot speaker male, and the youngest son of this male was the only one available due to family issues or whatever, and he was the only one available to do this welcoming. And they brought this story to us, and they said, in your time, in your life, you're going to be able to go through experiences that are similar, where you will have to decide, do you stick strictly to that protocol, or like what they decided was that this young man would step in his place of his father, but that was the first time that had been done. and they decided that for their own family, for their own community, for their own means of, of having that welcoming. But they wanted the continuation of the ceremony. That was more important than having it just specifically just this. It's always done this way, and it's always a male elder, but he wasn't available. So they found this flexibility and ability to within themselves to say, it may not be perfect, but it's still with the intent and the love of our people and our traditions that we're going to move forward in this way, where this younger male is going to still do all of the protocols and the rites, but he shared that story with us and said, you're going to have similar experiences. And so that really caused me to think about things in a really critical way, not just with language, but, I did have lots of experiences in the language classroom working with little ones that were very similar to that. And then also with my own children. And it really caused me to think of like an academic or in Western world, they call it micro and macro. So these are big, giant ways and these little ways that we do change our culture, that we are in charge of carrying things forward or not. And that's really, we're faced with that every day. And it's ultimately an individual choice whether we do that or not. And so I guess the commitment for myself is that I do want our ways to continue. And so I'm willing to try to find that flexibility within myself and within my circle to continue language and continue culture in our daily lives, whether things are not this perfect, ideal, pre-wartime fit model that we all aspire to. But I think we'll make it there someday if there are enough individuals who choose to have that flexibility and hold on to the important pieces in their daily lives. But that's, it's a tough choice. And then it definitely is a choice, and it comes with intention. We have to be intentional about it.
That just made me think. So there's that thought process of thinking we need to go back and we need to, find that ideal in order to move forward or do anything. And I used to think like that too. And I'm trying to broaden my horizons. And there's actually this book I'm looking at. It's called Lakota America. And it talks about like the introduction of the horse and how we didn't have horses back then. And, having to use this tool. And now we see horses in art. Like we see horses in our lives. Like this is like a pivotal part of our life that wasn't a part of our life before. So it shows how adaptable we are. And that is like at the very core of our being.
Right.
So rediscovering this and being reminded of that is really amazing. It's really cool.
It's really beautiful. And I come from really am truly proud to come from Sitting Bull's people. Both of my great grandparents on my mother and father's side were people that just believed in him and followed him into Canada and just were always there. And I just think that he is so brilliant and a true visionary. And he did say those things like we can take what's good and leave what's bad. And I think that is like timeless, ageless, visionary advice that we do continue to do that in our everyday lives. We can still take what's good and leave what's bad of this imposed, however you want to term it, imposed. I know a lot of at home on the reservations, we think of it as just white culture, but really it's colonial and it's imposed and it's big. It was intentional what was done to our people, but we can still take what's good and leave what's bad.
Yeah. And talking about winter counts, being able to attend your presentation, or I actually have, I didn't get to attend the second one, but I heard conversations continuing that were sparked from your presentation, and actually got to hear that one of our family's winter counts is actually in the Journey Museum, which was right near where we were located that day. So I thought that was really wonderful. But if you want to talk about what were some of the main points you wanted to express in your second presentation about winter counts?
I guess from a language learning perspective and being in the state and the place that we are on the trajectory or spectrum of language reality, the language loss, the language, however you want to word it, we're at this specific point in the timeline of our people. And we have to be intentional to create language learning opportunities, and that we can really use winter counts as a catalyst for language learning opportunities to hear language in certain ways. Like, for instance, I invited 2 fluent speakers to come up, and the second fluent speaker, first language speaker, Elder Lita Medicine Eagle Brandis, though she said it was a pictograph, a picture of a bear sleeping inside of a lodge. And I know what this pictograph refers to, but to hear her describe it in Lakota, as she used the words like timahal, which is in Lakota, which is like in grammatical terms, to be able to describe it. Timahal is I think it's a post position. So it's like the location. So it's like inside of something, like it's in a group of words that are like inside, behind, and all of those things. And thinking about how that can be, that singular sentence that she shared just right off the top of her head, how she would describe that pictograph. There's so much language learning lessons that could just be gleaned from just that one sentence that she decided. And it's just really beautiful. And another manner is which the sentence she used in grammatically, it's called a relative clause. So you use different, I'm not up to term on I think indefinite articles. So she used 2 together in one sentence, which made it like a clause. And these are like more, when you're learning, they're a little bit more advanced than the simple, like using the is just like one, right? But to use 2 of them in a sentence, and you're building your skill set in the language. And so you could hear that she is a fluent speaker because she has a more advanced natural knowledge of the language. And you could just glean so much language learning opportunities from having fluent speakers present along with language learners to really just have a dialogue around all of these different pictographs, and hearing how they would talk about them, or and sparking times where they may have, because that's how our Indigenous worldview, our Lakota universe view, that's how we are. Well, we remember something and then we want to share too, and then we'll circle back around to it. And to hear all of those language learning opportunities that could be jump-started by having a winter count present, that's what's exciting to me.
That's really, really awesome. And seeing all these different things, we see them as, different moving parts, but whenever they all come together and they just fit so naturally, like, work of art. Beauty.
Yes. And I just love winter counts. I didn't, like I shared, I didn't always know, and I don't know a lot of winter counts, but I do know my great grandparents very well. And I just absolutely love it. And it continues to teach me about our people, about our homelands. And I think about, like, one time we'll be camping. It'll have us camped in the Painted Woods, which is near Washburn, North Dakota. And then the next winter we'll be camped like by the Platte River. And so when I think about that, that's probably like maybe about a 7 or 8 hour drive in a car. And so then I think about the amount of land and knowledge that we knew with the trails and the rivers and the plants and the animals and just everything, like the expanse of knowledge and love and relationship that's there between our people and our land, to be able to be camped in one place and then the next summer be camped in a totally different spot. It's just really beautiful. And I think it has taught me so much respect and understanding that, I guess, how big our world was. And I really, just beautiful to me. And when I drive, like times when I've flown in a plane over North Dakota or South Dakota, or from like Bismarck to Denver, I look down and I think about the fact that, all of this is our homelands, and our people had so much, and still do retain a lot and maintain a lot of the knowledge of the land. And I mean, it's just, it's so big. It's just like, I kept describing it as a ripple, a never-ending ripple that goes out into the universe. When you throw a rock into some water, that's how I see winter counts as. It just never stops teaching and sharing and learning and healing in many ways. So I just want people to know more about them. And I don't want it to be this specialized pocket of knowledge where there's only a couple people who know about it. I think all of our people deserve the access to all of the cool things that it brings into your life when you learn more about them.
Yeah. And thank you so much for, starting up those conversations, because they really, like, this presentation created ripples, and we got to see that within the conversations that were being had outside of that. So thank you for starting that.
That's so cool to hear.
Yeah.
I really love it, because I know there's a lot out there, and I know that there's like my family, where they're still within the families, and they're not in museums. I know that there's a lot out there, and so I'm excited for our people to really start looking towards those things to learn and share.
And speaking of sharing, so at the end of your presentations, you shared some gifts with your attendees. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, my sister was teasing me saying, you can't give them before, because then it'll be like you're sitting. You can't make an announcement that you're gonna have gifts. But my mom is her name is Phyllis Young, and she just is really generous. She's always upheld our values of generosity and hospitality, and I witnessed her, throughout my life, really, really having that lived experience of living that value of our people. And I guess it comes from another experience where my husband taught me how to make corn wasna, and I had some, and I wanted to make some for honoring for my grandfather. And I made some, and this woman said, oh, I usually never get these except for at a funeral. And she called it funeral food. And I understood what she meant. I understood that our people really have our protocols in place around death, because that's been our experience. But I kept thinking, it's more than funeral food. I don't want our traditional food to be just known as funeral food. And I don't want our people's, especially my own family, where I can control that, to think that the only time you get wasna is when you die. And so I committed to, always, so I make wasna for like Christmas dinners, and just like, all sorts of times I try to give it as a gift. And I guess it's important for me it ties back to that understanding that we are in control of the continuation of our ways and of our values. And I also mentioned the names of a lot of people who have passed away. And so it was important to give in their honor and give back, especially to the families who have been there of those who I mentioned, as well as the elder fluent first language speakers who, deserve all the honor for them to, get a little, my husband always says, a physical thank you. It's a physical thank you. Thank yous, it can be heard, and that's good to say it, but also sometimes it's important to show with a physical gesture. And so it was important that I came with gifts and to really honor those individuals who have helped shape me to be who I am.
I was just thinking that when you did give those, I got to, bring it home, and my husband and I got to talking about, where we've seen it before. And, because we don't actually see Wasna all that often. And so we thought about, years ago when we had it as kids, or like our first experiences with it. So like you being able to give that gift in such a respectful way, like really did, bring out these parts of ourselves that we didn't even remember were part of ourselves.
Yeah.
That was really, it was really nice, and it was really thoughtful. And so you talked about honoring some of the attendees that were there and doing it in a respectful way. Can you talk about some of your influences in your language journey?
First, I always talk about my grandpa, and then also my husband. I talked about him in my first presentation, regarding assumptions and how he's really light, and he's been a big teacher in that, in those layers of identity that we'll go through and we have challenges with it, but he's a really avid learner. And then my brother-in-law, to them paired together to be able to really, boost the learning has been really beautiful. And so to be his partner and has been really, wonderful. So he's one of my biggest teachers. Then I guess the fluent go on. He's heard me, so he came in to harass. But I guess it's those teachers that I can remember from like elementary school, and then I named a lot of them at Stony Rock, Dakota, and Lakota, both fluent speakers. But when I first I graduated high school in Kansas City, Missouri, and I really wanted to come home. I remember feeling like, I just really want to come home. These aren't my people. I have a homeland. And but then I still wasn't making really good decisions for myself. And my mom said, I didn't even apply to college or anywhere or anything. And she said, you have to go to school. You're not going to just be sitting around. And so we went and tried to find all the tribal colleges that were still accepting people. And the only place was at Sioux University. And my mom's like, I have some Húŋkpapja sisters that you can probably, stay with. And she really wanted to get me out of Fort Yates, because I was, I was just drinking and partying as a young, teenager, and she just didn't want that life for me. And so we just drove to Rosebud, and my mom's she has two Húŋkpapja sisters from down there, and one's Lita Medicine Eagle Brandis, and then the other is the late Geraldine Arkhorn. And so we went and got me registered in one day, and then she's like, we'll figure out a way where you can stay. So she went and talked to Lita, and Lita said, yeah, you can she can stay here. And so I moved to Marshmallow in Rosebud, and I just turned 18, and I lived with Lita and her family for a year while I attended my freshman year in college at SGU. And my two teachers there were Dwayne Hollowhorn Bear and Neola Spotted Tail. And at the end of Neola's class for the second semester, I was the only one who finished her class. So it was just me and her there together. And I try not to get emotional about it, but I mean, I just felt like I won the jackpot, like of the Lakota world, because she was so kind and good to me. And she would always say, "What would you like to know?" You know, and so there was words that I would ask, or we would just visit, and it just ended up that I got to be around this really regal Lakota elder, and just I'm so grateful that I wanted to learn when I did, because so much of those elders are gone now, and I got to have these beautiful learning experiences from them. As I was younger. And so definitely the childhood people have been really influential and supportive of this journey that I'm on. Her, along with Sandra and Ben Black Bear. Sandra really stood up strong for me and my husband. When people would make fun because he's so light, or whatever, she would always say, we're laughing, saying on Facebook, she had a post that said, someone said, "Who's he?" kind of making fun. And she says, "He's the one that can speak better Lakota than you." And she just was like, just really firm in her love and support of me and my husband, and was really happy for us when we decided to get married and have a family. But, those definitely were life-changing experiences. And then my three main teachers after that are Peter Hill, Jan Ulrich, and Nicole Walker. And Nicole's far younger than me, but she's my teacher and somebody that I really respect, and she's brilliant. I took language classes alongside her and from her, and she has a drive and love for our language that allows her to just keep moving forward, and in this really beautiful, like, industrious way. She will struggle, she has challenges, but she just always moves forward with a vision that our language can be learned, and she's willing to help do that. And then Jan and Peter, that as allies and outsiders, really just motivated me, that to hear their level of advanced language, and to plant the seed that my language is learnable, and that I can do that too. And then by far, I guess there was a grandmother that I had the fortune to be around her for over a decade, is Dolores Taken Alive. Her and her nephew Jay Taken Alive were just really supportive of me in ways that was life-changing. And I always thought, without sometimes the challenges are big and they're hard and they're hurtful, but at the end of the day, with their support, I felt like I could do anything and I could do the work, and I was happy to, because they were just so loving and kind and supportive and relentless in that support. They never stopped. And when Dolores, I shared with her when I found my great grandparents' writings in the language, and she got to read them, and she said, I don't see how it's going to be, but I do know that this is all God's work. That this is all for a reason, and that all of this coming together is God's work for our language, and you're a part of it. And she, just was so encouraging. Every time I seen her, it's just like she would just pour that into me. And Jay was very similar in that. And so, there's other individuals, definitely. I have to mention Tom Redbird, because I worked alongside him for 5 years. And so my language proficiency and my ear for hearing our language is really from him, working with him. I always have this example of learning how to write, put it back, learning how to read and write, put it back. So it's like, hektakia eganaka. But when I was, when I first learned to read and write it, I was like, hektakia eganaka. Like, and it was just, it just sounded like that. And then working with him in the language nest, there's a little guy that grabbed something and he was kind of running around and he was like, and I was like, I think he's saying, I was like 5 seconds behind him. Like, pretty sure he just said, like, I had so many moments where that I would catch up and realize, for him to, just to be around him and hear the language in that manner, really gave me the ear for understanding our language. And I couldn't be where I am without him. And he was, we worked together for 5 years every day. And so I'm real grateful for that. And those are definitely the main, most influential people on this journey. And there's many, many others. And I have that working list that I read out in both of my presentations. And I realized that I missed some people who were actually in the audience. So that was pretty humbling. But it's important for me that anytime I talk about language or all of the lessons, that I do make those acknowledgements. So I do have a working list of over 70 people that have shared language with me and have been my teachers and mentors in some capacity and helped mold me to be who I am.
And wrapping up this interview, do you have any final thoughts about the Tusweca Language Summit weekend? And maybe some things you saw or some things you took away?
I just was really happy for my children to be around language speakers. I also, not living currently in the homelands, when I see our elders, it just hits me in the heart. And so to be able to share gifts with fluent speaker elders, and I got to share some of our family make the mentholated chest rub with bear root. And so I got to give those to elders. And when we were leaving, there was this group of Unchi from Pine Ridge, or they were Oglala Unchis, and they were all sitting in their, in the back, and one was in a wheelchair, and they were really all rubbing that bear root rub on them, and then they're all smiling and waving at me, and it was just like, that was cool. Like that moment, it was like, I was worth all the, all the driving and everything, because they were just kind of just all happy, rubbing it on. And she's like, does it work like Bengay? I said, yeah, you can feel it. You can feel it in your muscles. So they were just like rubbing it on their necks and everything when I was leaving. And like really heartened me and like nourishment for my spirit to be around our people. And I was really like fed my spirit in a really good way, in a beautiful way that I really needed, because I actually came from my aunt's services on Standing Rock directly to the summit. And so I was already in a kind of an emotional place, but really valuing that time with elders and loved ones that I don't always get because I don't live in the homelands currently, was just really beautiful. And I know it was a lot of work. And so I'm really grateful for Shichi Mike to put his time and energy into creating that place for us to come together, because it can be life-changing. And I know that just 1, 2 days, 3 days of being around our elders and our language can change your life, because that's how I have always felt. That one day where I was at that ceremony, when I was little and I didn't understand, that I remember that, forever. That's always my foundation of talking about language. And so in the end, I wanted to circle back to that all of this, everything that I shared is that, well, I guess I kind of said it, but I I wanted to talk about the fact that I just being real open and honest that I get to talk to our spiritual leaders and participate in ceremony, and I understand what's going on now, and I can, and now fast forward to now, where I go to pray is at Greengrass, and I get to I talk to Lekshi Arnacha Chanupa. He will text me all in Lakota, and then I get to text him back or tell him something. And, Lekshi, that I have a question, I'll say, like, oh, hamble, and, or, or not a dream, but, or I'll say, Dako Ochichia, and I'll say, Oha, and he'll call me, and just like, it just feels so like content that that memory of being a little girl and being on the outside and feeling panicky and like I couldn't understand, and now I can. And so that's just really the really important part that I forgot to share at the end of the presentation.
Yeah.
So I just want to share.
Yeah. And that really does make all the difference. So hearing, your experiences and hearing that feeling, that's why I cried, because I knew, we all know like what that feeling is, feeling like you're a part of the outside, or there's this whole world you want to get to know, but there's not a lot of places that, in the way we're used to seeing it, there's not a lot of places you could just go and like, peek into that world. You have to be invited, and it takes a while. So I think that's really beautiful to be able to come full circle and say like, hey, I'm here now.
I made it. I'm not that little girl that just like really wants to know. Now I'm in, and it's really cool. And there's a couple other like she there that really use the language with me, and I just appreciate it. Sometimes I don't understand everything, but I understand enough to be a part of everything in a way that makes me feel like I made it home. And it's really I don't know, so it was really important for me to share that with you, because it's been bugging me since then. Like I didn't get to say that. Like, yeah.
Yeah, because it's so funny, being able to like talk or use your platform and say something, and then you get back home and you're like looking it over and you're like, I missed that part.
Yeah.
Like, had this perfect presentation planned out, and when you get there it's like, I missed this part. All right, so thank you very much for meeting with me today.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I really like to talk.
Yeah.
Always when I present, it's no matter what, I always end up going over time, and so it's really hard to stop myself.
I love. Yeah, exactly. I love people like that, because I'm like, you always get the best knowledge in the and thens. They're like, this made me think of this. You're like, oh, thank you.
I was told by a woman from Uvik, a Cree woman. She said, when you find your people, you'll know, because they don't care that you're just going on about language like that. When you know those are your people. And so there's always other language people that you can connect with. And she's like, and we all need each other. And it just so yeah, we're out there, and it's exciting that there's always something more to talk about and learn, and help each other and support each other in your all the experiences and conversations.
Yeah. Oh man, thank you. And really, I really did enjoy your presentation, and thank you for all the nuggets of knowledge you shared, because it really did change a lot of my perspective, and kind of made me be more mindful about this journey I'm on. And it was just really nice, and I'm really thankful that I got to meet you today.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Diana.